Hello there, and welcome once again to the Mayor's Magazine. I'm Mick Cornett, the Mayor of Oklahoma City, and this is our program for April of 2016. Thanks for joining us. Well, if it's April, that must mean it's time for the Festival of the Arts, and I hope you're planning on coming to downtown Oklahoma City and being a part of it once again. And we are fortunate enough today to have the two co-chairs who've been working for months, you could say over a year, on preparing for this year's festival. So let me welcome Susie Clowers, who's a community volunteer. Welcome to the Mayor's Magazine.
Thank you.
And Kermit Frank, who's the Director of Community Relations for DeLisi. Thanks for being here. Sure. I always like to get a little bit of background. Where'd you grow up, Kermit? Where are you from?
I actually grew up in Central Ohio. Came to Oklahoma State in 1979 and stuck.
And never left.
Yep, I've been at DeLisi 32 years.
32 years. And DeLisi in general is a paving contractor?
We're a construction material supply company. You see the big green ready-mix concrete trucks. We do crushed stone, sand, concrete blocks.
And so, you know, as much work as there already is out there, I'm sure you got the citizens of Oklahoma City are probably saying they need to be busier.
Absolutely.
They need to be doing more streets and things.
It's generally a good thing.
And Susie, you're a native of Oklahoma?
I am. I grew up right here in Oklahoma City, went to Northwest Classen High School, and then like Kermit, I went to Oklahoma State, and so we kind of have that going for us, yeah. And live here in Oklahoma City, family's here. I'm married to fellow that works here for the city, so good place to be.
Absolutely, and you've been a part of so many civic efforts through the years. Kind of give us a short list of the litany of community organizations that you play a role.
Well, I've been a volunteer for many organizations. I was in nonprofits for many years, so working in Oklahoma City, working with great volunteers is just something that I really do. It's my passion. It's amazing to me what the people of Oklahoma City will do as volunteers, that they love this community and they give it their all.
Yeah, now when you're the co-chair of the Festival of the Arts, that's not some position you take lightly, or you think, oh, I'll just show up at the arts and gather the praise when it's taking place. That's a lot of work, and so I'm sure you knew what you were getting into. But
they warned us. They warned us.
But kind of give us an example of the size of this effort and all the coordination that has to take place to pull it off.
Well, this is a huge, like you said, a huge undertaking. It's 6 days. Usually these kind of arts festivals are maybe a weekend. There will be, at the end of the day, there will be 5,000 volunteers that will volunteer their time and their talents to make the arts festival a success. There are 48 committees that do the different duties that make the festival run so well, and each one of those 48 committees have 2 co-chairs, and they have 6 day chairs. So if you do the math, it's a lot of volunteers, and Kermit and I were lucky enough to get to recruit these volunteers from past years and go to all the meetings, and it's been a pleasure. It really has.
But
We're
I would
lucky.
guess one of the additional logistics issues is a new site this year, and so we need people to understand it's not going to be in the same area. It's going to be between City Hall and the Civic Center. So if they know where either one of those buildings are, they ought to be able to find it. But I assume that that's just an additional responsibility and communications-wise that you guys have had to take on.
It is, and the Arts Council and the city's been wonderful working with us to help make sure the infrastructure's in place for that. But as we've been recruiting, it's also added to the enthusiasm of people that we're talking to about coming out and participating. So we are, in a way, reinventing the wheel, but it's all the same things in a different place. And the new venue adds certain dynamics to the show that I think are going to enhance it. Instead of Artist Row, we've got an Artist Square.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to move around the grounds to see the art. We're going to have 3 stages. They're going to be equidistant from each other, north side, north and south of the Civic Center, and right in front of the City Hall here. So it adds a dynamic that we think is very exciting.
One of the things that people at home are probably thinking about when they hear about this new site, and a little bit of concern about where it is exactly, but they'll probably asking, where am I going to park? What's your advice, Kermit, on parking around the festival?
Well, for a number of years now, the Bob Moore lot's been available, and that's probably the largest surface lot in downtown, and it will be available.
So that's just west of the Chesapeake, of the Cox Convention Center. Yeah.
So while it was once across the street, it's just 3 or 4 blocks, but The Arts Council's been fortunate enough to get a sponsor to provide a shuttle service from there, so you can park there and shuttle for free. Also, there's a number of parking garages. There's one in the Arts District that's very close, but the other Embark parking garages are going to obviously have parking available, but there's also going to be a shuttle attached to them, so that you can get on a shuttle at any of the Embark parking garages, and it will also take you to the festival.
Okay, and one thing we should point out, Thursday and Friday during the day, yeah, there's going to be competition for parking, and so the Bob Howard lot would probably be a good idea. But on weekends, most of the, Monday through Friday 9 to 5 people that work downtown and occupy it are gone, and parking aplenty, especially in the central business district and in this area. So I hope people don't think that parking is going to be an issue and keeps them from coming down to the event, because it shouldn't, especially if they're coming down on the weekend. Susie, when people think of the Arts Festival, they typically think of two things. There's art, and then there's food. And people probably have their preferences over the two, but I partake in both. But what's new in the areas of art and food this year?
Well, there's wonderful 144 artists. They were juried in from 550 artists that wanted to be in the show. So we will have some wonderful artwork. And then, of course, the food. There's Meat Market Refectory is bringing in food this year. And there's a place called S'mores, and they make their own graham crackers for the s'mores.
Oh my gosh.
So we have the task of trying all of the food and jurying in the food. So it was a tough job.
Wow, they make their own not their own marshmallows.
No,
I'm not so sure
I
they
don't
did.
know. They were really good. And
The true perks of being a festival co-chair is doing the food jury. So I mean, what can I say?
it was a tough
was
job.
delightful.
We'll miss this next year.
Tell us about where the art will be located on the map if you're looking at it between the City Hall and the Civic Center.
Yeah, it will be a square around Bicentennial Park, on Couch and Walker, or Couch and Colcord Walker, and then I think it's Channing, which is the street, if you will, that's just east of the Civic Center. So all city streets, and so each booth will have quite an area, a more comfortable area to walk around.
Is this about the same footprint as the previous, or is it a little bigger?
It's about the same.
Okay.
The children's area will be right in front of City Hall, so mothers with small children won't be going over to the Myriad Gardens, even though the gardens are beautiful. It's spread out. There's a lot of space there, and it's the same amount of space where we are in the new space, and this is where the Arts Festival started.
Yeah,
30 years
in fact,
ago.
I can remember my first Arts Festival was on this location.
So we're coming home.
We are out of work. I mean, out of time, not out of work. We're out of time. And so I'll just close by thanking both of you, Susie and Kermit, for volunteering your efforts and making this Arts Festival the best ever. Give me the dates coming up.
April 19th through the 24th, and we're Tuesday through Sunday, 11 to 9 on Tuesday through Saturday, and 11 to 6 on Sunday.
All right.
50th anniversary.
Yeah.
Join us.
And we'll be back on the Mayor's Magazine right after this.
Psst, down here. That dog has a thirsty look in his eye. Did you know that it's really not that hard to save water? Excuse me, spraying me on the street's like putting me down the drain. In the heat of the day, I disappear before I can help. So, water after bedtime? Hey, we're in a drought, which means I'm kind of a big deal. So save me. Really, save me!
Welcome back to the Mayor's Magazine. I'm Mick Cornett, the Mayor of Oklahoma City. And in this segment, we're going to meet Jacob Cole, who is the Fraternal Order of Police Officer of the Month. Welcome to the Mayor's Magazine.
Thanks, sir.
It's very, very much an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And you were telling me before the break, you grew up in Pawhuska?
Yes, sir.
And what took you from Pawhuska to Oklahoma City? What was the trail?
After I graduated high school, I joined the Army. I did a tour in Iraq in '03. I moved down here after that, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah. Tell us about Iraq and serving the country at that particular time.
Well, that was 2003. That was the invasion, and it was interesting times.
Yeah, and it's very much a part of the political,
Absolutely.
ping pong that's going on now. I'm sure you watch that with interest, being emotionally vested in that effort.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your service in that role. But then you joined the Oklahoma City Police Department about 10 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And what drove you to that? Why did you want to be a police officer?
Just a continuation of service is the way I saw it.
Yeah.
My father was in law enforcement and military before that. I just continued that.
And the question I get, and I would think you might get it too, what's an average day like?
There is no average
Yeah,
day.
I figured
There
that was
there
gonna
is
be
no
the
average day.
answer.
It could be crazy on Tuesday and slow on Saturday. There's no average.
There's one particular day, though, that I guess you'll never forget, and it's partially the reason you were selected Officer of the Month. Take us through that day.
It was early in the afternoon. I'd received a call from our dispatch to check the welfare of a individual who was walking across the bridge of I-35 over Southeast 89th Street. It's a fairly common call. People see something that worries them like that, and they call. They want us to go make sure that people are okay, and generally they are. They're just walking down the street trying to get from one place to another. That day I got there, the guy was still there, matched the same description of what the caller had given out, and I got out of my car to talk to him, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "I'll jump."
Not the words you wanted to hear.
No, definitely not what I expected. Started talking to the gentleman, and he started moving more and more towards the ledge, the barricade there, and I kept trying to get him to talk back and talk to me, and he wouldn't talk to me, and then he eventually started praying. And when he was looking down, I was trying to inch closer, and so that if he did decide to go, I could try to get a hold of him.
Yeah. How far apart from you is at this point?
It started off about 8 feet, and as he's not looking, I'm inching closer and closer, and he eventually threw one of his legs over the wall there and was straddling the wall, and he asked me, he said, "Do you think he'll forgive me?" I knew he was going to go. I didn't want him to, and he jumped, and I lunged out and I grabbed a hold of his T-shirt and held on until help got there to pull him back over.
And so you're leaning over, and he and his weight you're holding him up by his T-shirt. And
Yes, sir.
And you got a hold of an arm or anything else, or just
Not to begin with. All I had was good old American cotton.
And he's hanging there, dangling.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And at this point, is he fighting or struggling, or is he grateful?
He just kind of seemed resigned to whatever happens.
I see. Yeah.
I was.
How long before help arrived?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It seemed like forever, but it was maybe 10 seconds, maybe 20.
Yeah.
And of all places, a Norman police officer pulled up on I-35 to help me. Didn't expect to see that.
And what was traffic doing down below?
Luckily, it was a slow area, but as things were escalating and progressing, I was able to get on the radio, get other units there to block traffic coming through that area, so that if something happened, we didn't have to deal with traffic as well.
I'm assuming the man at this point wasn't injured, so what happens next in a situation like that where someone obviously needs help, but it's not physical help?
Right. I take him into protective custody and take him to have a mental health evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I leave them in the care of medical professionals.
Yeah.
They get the help they need.
Well, I want to thank you on behalf of the citizens of Oklahoma City. And as you said, you never know what a day is going to be like. I mean, most of us out here have some expectation our day will be fairly normal or tranquil. But every day you wake up, you're in a situation like that, or in some level of combat on behalf of the citizens of Oklahoma City. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I know the Fraternal Order of Police is proud of you as well. They've selected you as your Officer of the Month. So with that, Sergeant, I'm going to have to move on to the next segment. But I again want to thank you for your 10 years of service and hope there's at least another 10 in you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks,
We'll be back on the Mayor's Magazine right after this.
At Embark, we're not just stops on a map.
Between my job and taking classes, this route just works easier for me. Sometimes I even get all my homework finished up. The free Wi-Fi helps too.
Where public transit goes, community grows. Plan your journey at embarkok.com.
Welcome back to the Mayor's Magazine. In this session, we're going to talk about criminal justice reform, and a guy that's amongst the leaders heading up our local effort is Chris Steele. Welcome to the Mayor's Magazine.
Thank you so much for having me.
I always like to ask our guests, about their earliest beginnings, and you're a native Oklahoman?
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
where'd you grow up?
I was born in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and lived there until I moved to Pottawatomie County. So I live in Shawnee now. I originally moved to Shawnee to attend Oklahoma Baptist University, and have just been there ever since.
All right. And after that, when did you get into politics?
I was elected in 2000.
You must have been a young man at that point.
I was 27 years old, yes, sir, and had the opportunity to serve for 12 years and had some wonderful experiences.
And were Speaker of the House from when to when?
I was Speaker of the House from 2010 to 2012.
Okay. And then after that, you have not completed government service. You found new areas of inspiration, and criminal justice is something I know that you're passionate about.
Yes, sir. I currently serve at a nonprofit by the name of the Education and Employment Ministry. It's more commonly referred to as TEAM, T-E-E-M, and we spend our time helping individuals impacted by incarceration successfully transition from prison back into the community.
Yeah. And part of that entire equation, and I understand TEAM's got one small part of the entire criminal justice system, but part of it is as we look at it now with fresh eyes, what we're seeing is that it's become, a county jail has become some sort of a combination of collecting mentally ill. It's collected people who may not be a danger to society, but they just can't afford bail. And it's really become, I think, there's been a lot of unintended consequences to some perhaps well-meaning efforts through the years, and it's got us into a system where I think most people look at it and say, this is not functioning as it should. Some people would say it's just completely broken. Why don't you explain, your take on, kind of the criminal justice system in Oklahoma as a whole, as it exists today?
Sure.
What state is it in?
Well, I think your observations, your analysis are spot on. By definition, when we look at the state level, the agency is referred to as the Department of Corrections, which by definition indicates that once a person has paid their debt and served their time, something in their life ought to be corrected. Some issue, some root cause of behavior ought to be better off than when they first went in. And the reality is that's just simply not happening, because we're at a point now, because we're so overcrowded, our incarceration rates are so high that it's the best that the Department of Corrections, or even at the local level, the county jails can do, is just to simply warehouse individuals in what is often a very hostile, antisocial environment, which not only is not correcting root causes of criminogenic behavior in a person's life, it's actually many times making that individual an even greater risk to society when they transition back into the community.
Because you've exposed them to perhaps more of a criminal element than they arrived with.
That's exactly right. And then on top of that, they come back into the community with oftentimes a felony conviction, which sort of acts as a scarlet letter. They have enormous fees and fines that they're often required to pay back as part of their sentence. Very difficult for them to find a job or even a place to live. They have family to take care of, and as you said, they've picked up some pretty unhealthy behavior along the way.
Well, help us through the emotional dilemma then of saying, if someone does something wrong, they deserve to be punished. And I think everyone generally believes that people that break the law ought to have some sort of punishment. But at the same time, we don't want to be completely insensitive to their lives and their future and their families. And then we also know there's an incredible cost to society, both the direct costs and then the indirect costs. That a lot of those are social in jail. So how do we fix this, Chris? Do you have some ideas on next steps?
I do. I think the starting point is to be able to differentiate between the person who truly poses a risk to public safety or maybe a danger to society and ought to be incapacitated for those reasons, versus the low-level offender who may be battling a mental illness or a substance abuse problem, who could be better served through treatment or mental health care and supervision in the community. It's not only proven to be more affordable from a financial standpoint to offer treatment, appropriate levels of treatment, but it's also deemed to produce much better outcomes, because when you can address the root causes of criminogenic behavior, oftentimes you have fewer crimes from being committed in the first place, because you have a healthier population. And I think ultimately that leads to improved quality of life for everyone. And so ultimately I think we have to get to the point where we are incorporating assessments that will help us determine who truly poses a legitimate risk to public safety and the person who doesn't, and then use those that set of data in the sentencing phase to make sure that the person is being sentenced to the appropriate level of consequence.
And you have a ballot initiative that you're working on?
We have a ballot initiative. I'm part of a coalition called Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform, and there's 2 state questions that we are seeking to place in front of the voters in November. State Question 780 ultimately reclassifies simple drug possession and low-level offenses from felonies punishable by incarceration to misdemeanors punishable by treatment in the community. Then State Question 781 directs the Office of Management and Enterprise Services, the financial agency within state government, to calculate and capture the savings from reducing the prison population for these low-level offenders and give those resources back to counties to actually fund the treatment and mental health care necessary to deal with the root causes of that a person may be dealing with.
And how far along are we in the process? Are you gathering signatures? Or
We're in the process of gathering signatures. We started gathering signatures last Thursday on March the 10th, and so we have 90 days to collect about 65,000 signatures per each question, and we are feverishly working toward that goal.
If people want to help you in the cause or sign the petition, is there a website, or is there a place to go get better information?
Absolutely. They can go to okjustice.org. And they can find us there. The name of our coalition is Oklahomans for Criminal Justice Reform, and we do have a website, and we invite anyone who's interested in pursuing a smarter approach to criminal justice to join us.
Well, Chris, thank you for your work. And first of all, you and I serve on a committee that's kind of looking at Oklahoma County situations. And I've always said, nothing is as powerful as an idea whose time has come.
Yes, sir.
And we're all, I think, in this politically divisive, era that we're in, looking for areas where Republicans and Democrats can come together and agree that changes need to be made, and both the political parties trying to see a societal gain, in a better solution. So thanks for your leadership role in this effort, and I'm hoping we can get something done here locally and statewide.
Absolutely, and thank you.
We'll have more on the Mayor's Magazine after this.
I'm Lee Criswell with Street Maintenance. Help us while we repair your city streets. Please slow down and be alert in all work zones.
Welcome back to the Mayor's Magazine. In this final segment, we're going to learn more about Oklahoma City Beautiful and its efforts to beautify our community throughout the month of April. It's called Litter Blitz, and of course Litter Blitz 2016 couldn't have better proponents than the 2 guests we have on, Executive Director Lisa Sinar and Program Director Kristen Milburn. Welcome to the Mayor's Magazine.
Thank you.
All right, let's get a little background on you. Lisa, are you a native Oklahoman?
I am. I grew up in Cushing, Oklahoma, and after high school I headed down to Norman to become a Sooner, and then moved up here and been in Oklahoma City and the Edmond area ever since.
Yeah, and Kristen?
I was born and raised in Oklahoma City. I attended the University of Oklahoma in Norman, and then I did Teach for America in Tulsa. Now I'm back in OKC, and I've been in OKC Beautiful for almost a year now.
Wow. And I'm not sure that our average citizen really totally appreciates all the work that goes into Litter Blitz. Because it's one thing to kind of gather up a troop of people, whether it's a neighborhood group or a Boy Scout troop or a church organization or whatever the organizing effort is, but to give them all the materials and to give them some semblance of responsibility and job performance is really, I got to really think, got to be a time task, a time-consuming task. And Lisa, what have you learned over the last few years in Litter Blitz, and how have we, kind of refined the effort through the years?
Well, you are definitely right. Litter Blitz is our biggest volunteer effort that we do. We should have about 12,000 volunteers out this year picking up trash and recyclables and just pounds and pounds of trash. And We have already started getting people signed up to pick up trash in public places, and we have a wonderful partnership with the city that we gather the trash and they come and pick it up for us, and we put together all the bags and gloves and supplies and water and everything necessary to have a great cleanup.
Well, Kristen, if somebody calls and says, you know, my group might be interested, what's going to happen from the time they call to the time they actually go out and do something? Take us through the process.
Sure. So we want Litter Blitz to be a really easy way to volunteer. We're very flexible. We let volunteers pick the date, the time, the location, so that way neighborhood organizations can organize on the weekend, companies can do it during the day. So they'll fill out a form online that tells us who their contact is, when they plan to pick up their supplies, where they plan to clean up, and how many people we can expect.
Yeah, and can people sign up online, or do they telephone you? What's the best way to go
Either
through
way,
it?
whatever they are more comfortable with, we can make it work. Online at okcbeautiful.com, under our programs tab, there is a tab for Litter Blitz, and they can sign up online, or if they want to give us a call, we can walk them through it.
Okay, so I generally, I think, well, there's neighborhood groups, and then there's church groups, and I assume there's like scouting and groups like that. Am I missing any large groups that try to get involved? Are there others?
Yeah, so we have a ton of businesses that
Oh, of
clean
course,
up
yeah.
around the medians and streets around their businesses, and we really view Litter Blitz as an economic opportunity for the city to clean up and be more beautiful for the businesses. And so we get a lot of business groups. I would say half of our groups are corporations organizing their employees on a Friday and getting their volunteer hours in.
Yeah, and Lisa, I always remind people, because sometimes you look around and it's kind of disgusting on how much trash is gathered in one particular part, and you think, how did that happen? Who let that happen? Then you realize, it's kind of windy around here sometimes.
It is,
and it can happen inadvertently. And one example that I always want to bring up is, I don't know how many times I've seen somebody throw something in the back of a pickup, because in Oklahoma and Texas, it seems like every other vehicle is a pickup, and it seems like they're taking care of it. I'm sure in their mind they've disposed of it correctly, at least for the time being, and perhaps they have good intentions to do something with it later. But invariably, they're driving down and it blows out, and then it winds up in somebody's trash. And I think that there's a lot of that. It's what seems like it doesn't seem inconsiderate at the first step, becomes inconsiderate, and then with the wind gathers in a spot, and before you know it, we have a trash issue. But all of that said, I can't tell you how many compliments I get on how far our city's come in that area. And people don't know how to describe it, other than they just they'll frequently tell me the city is so clean. And I don't know exactly if they know what they're saying or what they mean, but that's the feedback they get. And I guess, for you, that's music to your ears. That's exactly what you're trying to hear.
Absolutely, and like Kristen said, it's an economic driver. People come here and they want to bring their business here or settle here with their family. They want it to be a beautiful city free of graffiti and trash, and we just encourage people to make that extra effort. If you've been out in the park and you throw the trash in the back of your truck, just put it in your cab, take it home, throw it away, recycle. If we have the number one thing littered certainly in Oklahoma and in the country is a cigarette butt. And so we encourage people to put out that cigarette butt. Certainly don't throw it out the window, but put it out, keep it in your car, keep it in your pocket, take it home and throw it away. Don't leave it on the ground.
We have containers for you at our office if you would like one.
Well, throughout the entire month of April, it's Litter Blitz 2016. And as Kristen took you through the effort, feel free to call Oklahoma City Beautiful and tell them you want to get involved, and I'm sure they can answer whatever questions you might have. And I think the materials they give you are a really important aspect of this whole effort. In other words, they're going to give you the plastic gloves. They're going to give you the things to put the trash in, and it's going to seem much safer, much more organized after you've talked to them than it did the first time you thought of it or the first time somebody brought it up to you as a worthwhile event. And I've always said you're not going to have businesses with high standards in a city with low standards. And if we have trash in our city, we become a city with low standards. So thank you for your efforts to help clean it up, and it's up to the rest of us to get out there and be a part of this tremendous cleanup. So Lisa and Kristen, thank you for coming on the Mayor's Magazine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll close the show by thanking all of our guests for making this such a memorable event. It's April 2016. Go out and make it a special month in the state of Oklahoma and in Oklahoma City. And I'll see you next month with another show.